I don't know if it's a scary story or not. Let me just tell you how I've come to believe that ghosts actually exist. It all started when I was a child, due to a custom of my father, with whom I've since cut ties. I was so young I hadn't even started elementary school yet, but I remember it well because it was the first time I'd ever traveled so far from home. Due to a family custom on my father's side, we were all gathered at a hotel owned by my uncle. The custom is to perform a facial treatment on newborn children before they turn 10 years old. When I say face, I don't mean faces of different families, but rather the faces of the ancestors of each family. It wasn't just a simple visit to the graves. It was a ceremony where someone with a name like Onmyoji, a type of Japanese surname, stood in between us, and we prayed to the spirits of our ancestors for their protection. The event ended without incident. I have never encountered any ghosts or had any frightening experiences. Afterward, I had dinner in a large Japanese-style room at a hotel with someone whose last name seemed to be Odo, and a whole family of my father's relatives. After the meal and when the alcohol started flowing, everyone began asking the person who seemed to be Onaji to demonstrate his psychic abilities. I remember someone who seemed to be from Onmyoji then started talking about guardian spirits. They were talking about each person's guardian spirit. Hanma-san said that my guardian spirit is a sacred deity. I was told that a giant man in a dilapidated shrine surrounded by overgrown weeds is very strong and will protect you in times of danger. But in return, he will drain your good fortune and bring bad things to you, so you shouldn't rely on him too much. After that, my sister said she saw an ominous shadow on her leg, and we received a Tengu amulet to protect our grandfather's house. Incidentally, regarding my sister's foot, when she was in high school, she had an examination at the hospital, and it was discovered that a bone there was slightly protruding, so she had to have surgery. At that time, my family and I were saying that Mr. Onmyoji was the real deal. Later, I grew up, graduated from high school, and started working for a small to medium-sized company. There have been reports of paranormal activity in the area, but I myself have never experienced anything like that. However, I was plagued by a great deal of bad luck. There were a particularly large number of accidents. In less than 10 years, I've been in 8 vehicle accidents alone. Of those, I was at fault only once. The remaining 7 were accidents caused by other drivers. I was stopped at a traffic light when I was rear-ended. I was hit at an intersection by a car that ran a red light. For example, a car hit a rock and the rear passenger window shattered. The only time I was at fault was when I slipped on the snowy mountain and hit the guardrail. Because of this, when the family gathered during the New Year's holiday to help my grandparents recover from their dementia, we would often talk about Onaji Temple. I think my guardian spirit protected me from this accident too. But I was told that because I followed the rules, misfortune would come again, so I should be careful. And now, this is what I really wanted to talk about. I have a married couple who are friends of mine and live far away. My friend and I are close enough to each other that we often refer to each other as fellow Hanshin Tigers fans. My wife, Biko, was a friend of mine even before I met I, and she was the only female friend we had in our lives. I had previously received consultations from that couple who were troubled by spiritual issues. Whenever I heard strange noises, saw demons, or saw figures in the garden at night, I would offer encouragement or listen to their complaints. I also offered advice. Ultimately, they were introduced to a local shrine that could perform a purification ritual through their local shrine. When I met with the homeowner, they said that the cause wasn't just the two of them and that they had the house investigated. To get straight to the point, Jig was in my house. As they were going from house to house, the Shinto priest, without anyone asking him to, picked up a jig and said that this was the cause. It was a tapestry that A.O. had found at a flea market, meant to be hung up on Huanshu. I've seen it too when I went to someone's house to hang out. It was an item made of bamboo with an unusual pattern. As far as the couple can recall, the spiritual strikes did indeed begin 2 weeks after they bought that jig. It is said that Lord Ka said that evil trees and spirits were gathering because of Jig, and that he took responsibility for it. The jig will be purified, but the couple must also undergo the purification ceremony together. However, since it has been exposed for such a long time, we don't know what will happen when it is time for the exorcism. The couple was asked to find a trustworthy person who could keep the two of them in check, and after discussing it, I was chosen. I readily agreed when asked by the person I've trusted the most since birth, and Biko, who is still my only friend of the opposite sex. We took advantage of our day off to go to that shrine for a purification ceremony. It was so deep in the mountains that the navigation system seemed to be telling me I was driving through the forest, but a couple who had been there once before went ahead of me, and we arrived safely. When I arrived at the shrine, I met the priest, who was a cheerful old man. The owner said that I had brought a good person, so I was a little wary, wondering if people who are treated so kindly are more likely to become violent. The shrine we entered was a beautiful place, but it was a simple place without any decorations, almost like a house. The shrine only has a main hall and a few smaller shrine buildings. We were not allowed into the main hall of the shrine, but received spiritual guidance in a more sacred-looking area. The two of them might suddenly try to run away from the dojo. Absolutely do not leave the dojo. If anything happens, restrain them. After being told that, I remained silent, sitting next to the couple. When the deception began, the couple was forced to drink alcohol and beaten with strange branches covered in grass. I had something like a scroll wrapped around his neck. I felt unwell at one point and almost lay down, but they held me down. Although I was told to stay asleep, when I grabbed his shoulders and tried to help him up, the priest yelled at me that it was okay to let him sleep. There were a few mishaps, but everything went smoothly. Afterwards, as a token of gratitude for the blessing, the couple brought money to the shrine and ordered takeout from Katabukiya, a restaurant near the mountain where the shrine is located. The priest, Kabatsu, and I all ate together. I talked to the owner about various things during the meal. Apparently, there are specialized companies that perform the purification of jigs, and they are no longer found in shrines. They are not Japanese jigs. It's probably from a foreign country. As we continued talking, the topic of the host being able to perform spiritual energy transmissions came up. The reason why the master said that he brought a good person with him when he met me was because of guardian spirits, and he said that my guardian spirit is probably an ancient god from a shrine that is not worshipped deep in the mountains somewhere. No matter what happens, I'm sure they'll protect you. But he doesn't seem like a very good god. If you rely on them too much, something will be taken away from you. Don't rely on me too much. That's what he said. My friends, a married couple, have been experiencing this for about a year now, and the spiritual energy has slowly decreased, and they say nothing has happened since. The reason I'm telling you this is because I had another near-fatal accident today. I'm on guard, wondering if they'll come again. A story I heard from a friend. He went to a university in Hokkaido and apparently frequently went to family restaurants with his friends. We sometimes talk until dawn, accompanied by drinks from the drink bar and French fries. This is something everyone has experienced. One day, while enjoying a conversation as usual, I noticed a figure peering into the shop from outside the window. She's a young woman. I didn't pay much attention to it at first, wondering if there was a local person in the store looking for it, but after it hadn't moved for 10 minutes, I started to get worried. If you tap your friend on the shoulder next to you, they'll notice. That's strange. Isn't it better not to look at it too much? They communicate while holding onto the bridge. As I was looking at the bridge in my line of sight, the woman moved, slide sideways. When a normal person moves, their shoulders always move. Whether you're walking or changing direction, your shoulders always move. After the woman disappeared from view, we got really excited talking about it. And the conclusion is that it was not of this world. The other day, I had a meal with a friend at a family restaurant in my hometown of Kagoshima. Throughout the meal, people kept glancing behind me. That's when he told me the story from earlier. And now that woman is back again. It seems they're peeking into the store from outside the window, just like before. I couldn't turn around. He seemed relieved and said he was gone. More than 10 years have passed since they saw it in Hokkaido, but apparently it looked exactly the same as before. Her appearance, the way she looked around the store, and her otherworldly movements with no up and down movement of her shoulders. When I left the store, I checked the area around the window where the woman had been, but it was so crowded that it was impossible for anyone to stand there. And the windows are higher than my head. You need to be at least 250 cm tall to be able to see someone from the window. Perhaps there really was something other than human there. Fortunately, my friend says that nothing particularly unusual has happened since then, both last time and this time. Then I came up with an unpleasant idea. I wonder if that woman is going around peeking into all sorts of family restaurants like that. I think the journey gradually became more difficult starting from Hokkaido, and eventually they reached Kyushu. I want to believe that my friend just happened to encounter it twice by chance, but perhaps I'm being too optimistic. And I'm also curious about what the woman will do next. Kagoshima is at the very end of the mainland. I wonder if they're heading to Okinawa now. Or will it turn back and head north again? If you know of any similar stories, please share the information. There was a camp program designed for elementary and junior high school students, and we went to a campsite in Iwate Prefecture. It was held once a year, and I was invited by a friend and went 5 times from childhood until I was in Oroku. But that strange experience happened when I was in Oroku. To put it simply, on the second night, I suddenly woke up and stepped out of the tent, and it felt like someone was standing there telling me to come over. I don't really know why, but I followed that person without any suspicion. There was a rule at the campsite that you weren't allowed to leave the campground without permission, but for some reason that person started walking towards the exit, and I followed them. Incidentally, that person walked about 20 meters ahead of me. I don't remember his height, but to me as an elementary school student, he seemed like a normal, tall adult. Then just as we were about to leave the campsite, I was startled when you suddenly grabbed my arm from behind, out of breath. I got yelled at for trying to go outside without permission. We were sleeping in the same tent, but apparently she noticed me going outside and followed me. Apparently he called out to me and chased after me at full speed, but I was walking slowly, and I didn't hear any footsteps or voices from him running until he grabbed my arm. Even though I was being scolded, I looked over at the person who had been leading me just moments before, and they walked outside without paying any attention to me at all. The next day I was talking to Aiko, but it seemed she couldn't see that person. But my friend, who was in the 3rd year of middle school, was running as fast as he could, and he couldn't keep up with me, a primary school student walking slowly, and he couldn't hear my voice either, so he got really scared. The camping trip lasted 3 nights and 4 days, and after that, nothing unusual happened. By the last day, I had almost forgotten about it and was enjoying myself. Aiko seemed genuinely scared. Usually at night she would sneak into the tents of other campers and draw on their faces while they slept. But on the last night she wrapped herself up in her sleeping bag early on. I also told myself not to leave my tent that night, no matter what. That's what they said, so on the last night, when everyone was having a great time, I spent it playing with my friends in a tent. Well, the camp ended without incident after that. Despite this strange experience, for some reason I didn't find it particularly frightening. Aiko was genuinely scared, but this is the end. Nothing particularly happened, but it was a strange experience. What would have happened if I had followed them? That alone might be scary to imagine.